It must be Wednesday. It must be Wednesday because we're here at Youth Central Sports, and I have the most famous Coach Carter in all of the land. I know, actually, you know what? I have the original Coach Carter in all of the
Original.
land. So let me make
Amen.
sure that I say that right because you had to tell Coach Carter, yeah, you may be the famous one, but you're the original.
Original. I'm the original. I was here first. And he thought that was funny. He said, but they know me better than you. I said, yeah, that's okay. But I was here first.
Yeah, uh, a lot of people don't know that he was a guest speaker of yours a few years back at your annual event here in the Orlando area.
Right, right. He was great guy. Fun to be around. Had a lot of fun with him. I was coaching at Boone High School at the time, and he got a chance to come by and see the guys play, and they got a chance to meet him. I had a chance to spend some time with him one on. We were dinner a couple of nights while he was here. In fact, he extended his stay. So really had a great time talking to him, talking basketball, talking life, talking the movie, and how interesting it was that that movie was 90% accurate. So there's really some good stuff in there. He's a funny guy, and we still stay in contact with each other from time to time. And I constantly remind him, they made a movie about you, but I'm the original.
Okay, that's Vince Carter. I'm Charles Morse. You're watching Youth Central Sports, and we come your way every Wednesday here live at 11 p.m., 10 p.m. his time because he left us. He left us here in Florida. You know, I can see the Brentwood on his shirt there. He's in Tennessee right now. By the way, Vince, how's the weather? Because it's in the 80s now, man. Just to share with you, it's in the 80s now. So what's the weather like up there in Tennessee?
Well, I had today was 45. Our low tonight would be 27, 26. So we're having, right now, we consider this to be a heat wave compared to where we've been. It's been cold. It's going to have this kind of temperatures for the next couple of days. It's going to drop a little bit, a little colder than the next couple of days. And then we're going to have our heat wave again. We're going to get up in the 50s.
Okay, well, see, because I went to school up
That's during the
north, and
day
you
now.
know,
That's
in the
during the daytime.
40s is a very good thing. Trust me. Trust
Oh,
me.
yeah.
In the
Yeah.
40s
Anything
is a
in
good
the
thing.
40s, 50s is good weather.
Yeah,
Yeah, 40s, 50s
very
is
good
good weather.
weather. You know,
It's
you
that
know.
30s and 20s. Yeah, that 30s and 20s is what kind of gets your
Well, listen,
attention.
I want to throw
You
a
got
couple of
mine
things at you. You know,
anyway.
before we talk about the NFL playoffs, I want to ask you what you think of the games that was played. Um, You know, in the news, they're talking about the gentleman who was there at Michigan State, the president, she resigned. And I think the thing that bothers me, I mean, my personal opinion, not necessarily how we do what we do, and I kind of get it, because you know, a lot of times when victims are victims, and then before the sentencing, the victims usually stand up and they say something to the person or the family, blah. And
Mm.
to me, the majority of the time, not necessarily this guy, I'm not necessarily talking, but the majority of the time, when somebody has done such a heinous crime, when it comes to when the family members and they stand there and they talk about how you took my child's life and da da da, and my life will never be the same.
Hmm.
I find that the person who has done this heinous crime cares less about anything that you have to say. They're not really hearing anything. And I think really it's not necessarily so this guy or woman or whoever it is, I think it's maybe more for the family of the victims to get that out. But if that was me personally, I would just be happy with the sentencing going, whatever it is, the 30 years, the 15 years. This guy already was facing 60 years, Vince. He was already facing 60 years on the other, I think it was child pornography. So he was going to end up dying in jail anyway. In addition to, I think they
Hmm.
gave him 175 years. You know, so it was about a week
Right.
of, I guess, because, you know, there was like 150 girls. But my question that I wanted to ask you, why, when something like that on that level, that they would continuously try to ignore it and cover it up, because from what I understood, there were several girls who had complained, who had said something, and they was just kind of brushing it under the the rug. So now that this one girl who was courageous enough to say, no, I'm going to speak up, speak out, and finally it was heard. So I know you
Hmm.
don't have the answer in that sense, but can you just speak on that for a minute? I mean, on that level, at that I mean, we're talking about, you can't get any higher in the sense of the Olympics, those athletes and what it means, and all the money, and the world is watching, and you're at the top of the top of the top of the athletes, and what sports is about when it comes to competition and where we are as a whole in the world. And here you got this guy, he's dealing with all of these girls, young girls, and evidently they had been complaining for a while, you know? It's just kind of sad the way the system is set
Well,
up.
it's sad because people they look at the situation, the advantage that it has for them. I think is one of the things that I feel that happens, because when you hear about these things, it's taking so long for them to come to the front. And many times, once the investigation is started and really look into it, it's been reported, it's been mentioned, there have been signs. And what comes to mind is the situation at Penn State with Sandusky. It was proven over time that people had seen it, they turned their head, they didn't want to. They didn't want to be a tattletale because of what Sandusky represented to the school, to the effort of what's being done, not taking into consideration. And a couple of people really, a couple of guys involved in that situation said they thought it was wrong, but they didn't want to say anything. That mentality, I don't, I want to understand that, because I know you recognize it's morally wrong, it's against our policy, but this guy is who he is, he's bigger than life and whatever else he's doing. And that seems to be the case here. You see more and more people are recognizing it, but they're not saying anything. And I don't know whether that's for protection, or that's because I don't want to hurt the situation, I don't want to destroy it, I don't want to be exposed. I don't really know why, but the damage that's done is irreparable. These young ladies had to experience that, and statistics and show that their behaviors, and many times this changes their behaviors for the rest of their life, and they not cannot recover from some of these incidences. So the importance of what that person represents is to got to be the key to me. This doctor was highly recognized, working with the elite athletes of the world, and the associations that he had. And nobody wanted to bother that. So what's bigger, the well-being of the kids, or the well-being of the program, or the well-being of this particular person? Don't know. I mean, I think the well-being of the kids come first, because that is the product. That is really the real golden prize. They're bringing their talent, they're honing their talents with you. You're teaching them, you're allowing them, and you're using them, using their abilities to enhance the Olympic product, which is great. I'm all about that, because some of them go on from the Olympic experience to do some other things. If it's that important, then let's protect it. Let's put situations and guidelines that we can protect it, and that appears as though that's not being done.
Well, that's, yeah. The thing is, Vince, and I think I've said this before, I don't really look at it the way most people look at it, is as serious as it is. I really, we really don't address the mental part of that, because I've talked about it before, but we really don't address the mental whatever that is, because we want to look at him and accept him as somebody as normal, because ain't nothing normal about what he, because what we first do is that we look at his status, we look at the fact that he's a doctor and all, but there's something mentally wrong with him. Just like at Penn State, because I've been a male all my life, and I have never, and I can't imagine looking at little boys and going, and going, oh, okay, or any little girls and
Mm-hmm.
going, oh, okay. So I would like to just hear somebody like Dr. Robinson, or somebody that could address the mental part of what is going on and why we don't really address it more so, not as an excuse, but just talk about the mental part of that as well. I don't, because we
Well,
try to act like they're normal people.
well, the situation to me comes down to two things. I think we spoke about this in a show previously: racism and mental health. Two things we don't understand, don't want to understand, and don't want to bother. And I seem, and we make excuses for why we don't want to bother it. We make excuses for it why we don't understand it, and we legitimize it sometimes because we don't want to deal with it. And I see often, more often than not, that's what you're dealing with. And those are two areas, and there may be others, and others may have other opinions, and I accept that. But for me, these are the two biggies that we don't want to admit exist, and then we don't know how to deal with them. And the long term damage that this causes is is just so unfortunate for the victims, and as much as it is for the perpetrator himself, because he is in fact sick, in my opinion. If he or she tends to do these kind of behaviors, that's not normal. But Charles, if you look at what we do in our society, we let things be normal because we don't want to bother them. We don't want to upset that. We don't want to open that can of worms. So we turn our head and say, well, that's an isolated incident. We won't bother that. But those isolated incidents grow and grow and grow and grow. Give you an example. You look on television, and this is going way back. This is probably dating me in terms of my age and things of that of it, but it's okay. You remember, and I give you a perfect example, going back and looking at the Dick Van Dyke Show. Now I'm going back a long ways,
Right.
where he and his wife slept in separate beds. They never allowed them to be in the same bed together. They maintained, they really controlled the conversation. It was never in an intimacy, both physically or mentally, or conversationally, or nothing to that point. They were husband and wife, but they made them look like they were neighbors. As time progressed, we allowed that situation to become more intimate. We allowed the language to change. We allowed them to be more expressive in our conversation, and everybody thought it was okay. Okay, then profanity became a part of the normal script of how we expressed ourselves. Nobody thought anything about it. Then people became offensive by it, but the masses said there's nothing wrong with it, so we let it go. Well, we progressed from that, from violence, we on into to people, how they act, and we make more and more excuses because we don't want to upset the apple cart. I contend and will hold on to the fact that until we can stop and address it as what it really is, then we're fooling ourselves. We don't want to call racism racism. We don't want to call mental health mental health. We want to call it something else. We want to give a whole background of excuses as to why it can or cannot be. The fact of the matter is, the professional people, and you can bring Dr. Robinson on, and I'm sure he can give statistic after statistic that they are fully aware, or there's statistical data to support the fact that these people have these issues. There are numbers of them. And each time something happens, that information goes into that database, and this number grows more and more and more. The question is, when will we address that? Not being addressed. Meanwhile, we're damaging lives. We're just absolutely destroying these people's lives. And I'm truly troubled. That's one of those things I kind of look at and go, I don't understand.
Well,
And,
you
and then
definitely hit the nail on the
and
head,
it's
Vince.
in sports.
Right. And then the thing is, as far as the Olympics and just, I mean, the same thing at Penn State, it always go back to the money. It always go back to the money, to the money, to the money, to the money. It's, which is a sad, but I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Something on that level, like Penn State, or something on the level like like you don't get any bigger than the
The Olympics,
Olympics,
yeah.
and especially with those girls, and that's, I mean, gymnastics is part of probably one of the biggest parts of the, of the Olympics, period, you know, and
The
then
Olympics were built on. I mean, it was built on. I mean, or it's more so today. I mean, it started out as an athletician. When I say athletic, more running and track and field per se. But the gymnastics now has become such a great part of that. But the fact of the matter is the youth that's involved. That's the part I get trouble with. We take them, we put such emphasis on it, and I have no problem from the competitive standpoint. I have no problem from the eliteness of it, because I think elite athletes have to have a place to display their elite talents. I'm fine with that. For coaches and trainers and stuff like that, I'm fine with that. That's what sets us apart. in this competitive nature. But you also have to consider the individuals that are involved. They'll leave, you've heard Olympic skaters, gymnasts, they leave home, they move to different states and live with people just to train under elite leadership. In that, trusting that my child's going to be safe, trusted that this person is going to do it the way it needs to be done. And many times now listening to it, coming back, now I'm concerned. If I had a young girl, a daughter who was interested, I guess I'd have to move where she moved. I don't know that I could send her like that. Are enough safeguards in place to protect and Charles, here's the frightening thing. We haven't heard about the boys yet. We
Yeah.
right now we got a big incident with the female. We haven't heard about the boys yet,
Right.
and that's like waiting for the other shoe to fall. And then the question I would have if I was sitting on any panel or doing any investigation, I want to know what are the safeguards, because this is not the first incident, but this is a huge incident. A number of people involved. What safeguards are in place? If not, then what are we going to do now to protect
Wow.
the integrity of the Olympics, protect the integrity of the profession of a physician, a trainer, and an athlete? What are we going to do about that? What are we going to do to protect that family that they can send their child to be involved in elite training and elite competition, representing our country now? And what are we going to do to protect that? And that's the part that I am not clear on. And there's probably information that I'm not aware of, but that's the concern I would have, is how we're going to take care, what we're going to do to change it. Because I don't want to look up tomorrow and hear we got another report that is becoming all too common, that we've got another person who has violated a group of people. And I hope it's not true, but I just know that the young boys have been violated and they just haven't come forward yet. Or it has, and what happens on this charge is, nobody's going to say anything till somebody gets caught.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Unfortunately, it's just such a sad. I mean, when you when you hit the nail on the head, I guess it really just shows how selfish and how immature we are as a whole, as a culture in this country. Man, it's really scary. And part of why we do what we do on this show is that we always talk about how important sports is and putting your child in the
Mm-hmm.
right environment, and how this is
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be a positive experience. And it's such a place where the mentoring is so important. This is the place in which where mothers don't have the fathers around, or the fathers don't have the mothers around, and it's supposed to be a place
Mm-hmm.
in which it's supposed to be something positive and good experience, and that's one of the reasons why we do youth central sports. you know
Right.
that's one of the things that
Well,
we try to emphasize.
it goes back to, again, I agree with you 100%. It highlights the importance of sport and how social sport is, and how it helps to develop an individual and groups of individuals. Teaches them how to interact with others, teaches relationships, and all of those things leading toward that positive experience that you spoke. What we're seeing is that is, how do we protect that? How do we ensure that we still have that vehicle for those particular kids? And just in society in general, how do we protect those kids from being exposed to this kind of experience? And I don't know, I'm sure they have their challenges like anything else. It's always easy to sit on the sideline and speak to it, and I understand that. But I know as a coach myself, the guidelines and checkpoints that I've always been around and put in place to ensure the safety of this kid, and also from the safety of the integrity of the program as well. That the kid here is to play the sport, to be the best he can at that sport, and I'm here to protect him and help him grow into being the best person he can be on the field of the court or whatever he's playing, he is playing, and in life. So one, they all go together.
Right. And then the thing is, Vince, I was thinking about being a parent, but also, you know those girls are training so hard. Their
Mm-hmm.
lives changed forever, whether or not they end up on a Wheatie
Oh yeah.
box, or
Correct.
Their faces are all over the world. And then what
Hmm.
it takes to compete and get to that level, the
Right.
mental part of it, and you know, you can't put yourself in their place, but you just try to think like, what is it? Because some is it's going to affect others differently than this one versus this one.
Right.
But to just try to put it in a place where you can go and block it out, still concentrate, do what you need to do, and just act like it didn't happen, or it just never took place. To me, that's amazing. Like, where
Well,
do you go
that
mentally? You know?
that speaks to in the eliteness of sport. When you get kids at the elite level, they're all they're learning to focus and to be able to put this as a priority, and you block out everything else. That is as much as a plus as it is a plus as much as it is a minus, because now this kid or this young athlete sees this not right, but knows that the carrot that I'm trying to get, I got to go through this way to get this carrot. So they block out this situation because they're so focused on their training, their on the activity, and the ultimate goal of being an Olympian, or whatever that goal that they have. Ultimately, competing at the Olympics, obviously you want to be a gold medal winner, and they tend to sacrifice what I know they recognize this is not right, but this will get me where I need to get to, because they're trained to focus and block out other things that it becomes a natural. You know, it's just
But
like, and I'm sure Dr. Robertson can speak to this. I've had the opportunity to speak to abused women and saying to them, how could you? But when you listen to the explanation that they give, now it's not always that I believe the explanation, or not, I'm sorry, it's not always that I agree with the explanation. But if you listen to the logic behind it, you kind of understand a little bit why they said, well, okay, I could go along with this. I'm gonna accept this because I want to protect the kids, or he's gonna get better, or she's gonna get better. And the same thing dealing with alcoholism or drug addiction, they're gonna get better. They promise me they're gonna get better. I know they fail, but they're gonna get back. I mean, what is that mentality like? I mean, how do you do that? That's an acceptance. That's a behavior in itself that I think people are not willing to. They don't train for it, but they get trained by it to learn to accept that. And that's a psychological situation that people get caught into. So it's an evolving door. It's nothing circle until they actually get a chance to break out of that. I talked with a person who was I talked to a person who was an alcoholic, and before he realized it, he never thought he was an alcoholic until he got a chance to see his life in reverse. And what he had said, that this was just a casual situation. Well, that casual thing went from once a week to 3 times a week to 4 times a week to every day. To him, it was no big thing because he didn't think it was an issue. But when he got a chance to go back and look at it through counseling, through the failure of his family, destroying it, and they recounted that to him, he finally realized, you're right. But he couldn't see it because to him it was normal. It was nothing wrong with it.
what
Same thing,
is
pedophiles say the same thing. They say it's just normal. Normal for
well,
who though?
well, I was gonna say
For the
this.
pedophile.
Well, I was gonna say this. He was still saying part of what he was doing, and I won't even say what he was doing,
Hmm.
but he still was saying, as far as like last week, that it was still a good part of what he was doing, which was absolutely crazy. But it
Yeah,
was
but he believes that.
right, obviously.
Mhm.
Not to get off topic, but when you said what you said, it made me think of, it's funny because I was just talking about a friend of mine that I was very close to, just talking about him last week. And in 10th grade, he just dropped out of school and he kind of disappeared on me. So I didn't see him because we were very close from sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth, 10th grade. And he dropped out of school and he kind of disappeared. And then years went by, and come to find out that he had started dating my sister and living with my mom and my sister. And I came home, and Vince, he was so strung out on crack, and because I hadn't seen him in a while, real nice guy. Don't know what happened to him. And he said to me, looking like he was on crack, "Well, I don't see nothing wrong with doing a little crack now and then." And I just looked at him because at that point, by what you just said, that's what made me think. Because when you look, because me knowing him the way that I knew him growing up, he was not that person anymore. And even when you saw
Hmm.
him, you knew that he was on drugs. He looked
Right.
broken. He just had that. I mean, you know that
Hmm.
look. And when
Oh
he
yeah.
said what he said, Vince, I just looked at him and it's like you want to give him a hug because he was a really nice guy, really good guy. Don't know what happened. But when you said what you just said, it just made me think about how he saw what he saw and don't know how, whatever vision that is, I don't know, but it just brought that back to me.
Yeah, when you again now, if you can take away the dislike and the uncomfortableness of it all, which is where I think counselors get to, and sometimes they're disturbed. But when you listen to what they have to say and listen to the logic behind it, so it almost makes sense. I mean, it really does. You stop and think about how he or she perceives their addiction, almost for it to be that it makes sense. I can see how they think it makes sense because they rationalize it. They've found a way to make it sound like it's normal. They deal with other people who view the same way, who do the same thing. So to them, they're in a normal world. But it's amazing to me the number of people who are aware of this abnormality, if you will, and won't speak to it because of who it is. So I applaud, and I understand the stress of reporting this, being a whistleblower, if you will. But it's so necessary, and again, these victims need help to prevent these situations as much as we can. Are we doing it? They're being scrutinized, they're being background checked, and all of that. But if this person is good at what they do, like anybody else, they're going to be able to fool you a few times, and you're dealing with other like-minded people that makes it easier. Charles, it's amazing, and now you're going to hear people who say, "I thought something was wrong. I always felt like something." Well, why didn't you say anything? Well, I wasn't sure, and I didn't want to mess up his career. That as a doctor, as a person provider, you should be able to make that comment to them, even though it may offend them, but it would also make them feel honored and respected, that you would have enough respect to come to them and say, "I don't know if I agree with what you're doing. Explain that to me." Or however you want to make that happen. We got to do more than what we're doing tonight, and that stop accepting.
Wow. Well, didn't mean to really go on that long, but and the thing is, what I think I'm going to do when you say that, I think I'm going to go and see if I can ask Dr. Robinson a couple of questions and we can play it back on the show. And,
Hmm.
let him give us some feedback, the clinical part of it. And,
Yes.
but then again, Vince, but that's the area you've been working in for a long time because you've been dealing with, the mental health, drug addiction,
Right.
alcohol addictions. And
Alcoholism,
so, I mean, I know you've seen a lot of some of
violence.
everything.
I I don't want to say I've been blessed, but I will say that maybe I've been blessed and fortunate enough to be able to see both sides of the coin. I've seen recovery. I've seen change. I've also seen those that we could not reach, and we had to count them as lost. How far deep they got into that. So I've seen it. I've seen co-occurring addictions, alcohol, drugs, alcohol, mental health, all those, some of those mixed behaviors. It's frightening to actually look. It's rewarding to see a change come about in that. But I've seen it at the street level. I've seen it in the youth, and that trail leads right back home. If you follow it back home, something in the home that has helped to make this real, and that's where a lot of change has to happen. But Charles is more rampant than we know. The numbers are showing a decrease in some of that activity from a social standpoint, but the numbers are so high. Drug addiction now, they talk about it coming down, teen pregnancy coming down, teens using drugs coming down. The numbers are dipping. I agree, statistics they are, but look at the numbers. look at the numbers that we're dealing with, and you've got a decrease in that number. While that sounds good, when you can say we're down 10%, we're down 20%, look at where we were.
Hmm.
Look, we're looking at 1,000% and you're down 20%. Can we champion that? That's not enough to champion. You know what I'm saying? So, but we got to do something. We just can't stand by and talk about what if. We do have to start making some inroads and some changes, and that's being done. I've seen that in mental health, which, I was a part of that and still indirectly work with it now, because I do think, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but I mean, it goes back to what we talk about in sport. I've always believed that therapy, sport is therapy.
Yeah.
And I've seen it, and I've really championed it, and one day I'm gonna write a book about it, because I've seen it happen. That sport is therapy. The
Well,
principles of sport, the principles of therapy.
well, see, now you just giving me a show idea just to talk about that sports and
Hmm.
therapy and why it's
Hmm.
so important on
They go
Saturday and
together.
Sunday, as
They
a
go together.
whole, because
Hmm.
so many times you hear, even when there's discussions, when serious stuff taking place, now when you start talking about that and taking away from people's sports time, they'd be like, well, I don't want to talk about that right now, because I
Hmm.
just want to deal with my sports, because whether or not that's good or bad. But I think it helps us step away from reality for a
It.
minute.
I had the pleasure of speaking at a clinical psychology type setting of people who deal with youth and psychology and dealing with some of their social concerns. And it was interesting to me as I shared with them the ideas and principles that we were using in midnight basketball in an attempt to reach that population of people. And I was convinced, and my theory to them was using those principles as you do counseling with these kids. I'm taking sport that deep that you can use the principle of sport in recovery, in behavior change, for group settings as well as individual, because sport is a structured opportunity that it creates the need for you to socialize with others and build relationships. There's trust factors, accountability. All those are the same factors that go into therapy. When we're talking mental health therapy, and we're talking about addiction therapy, and those kinds of things are changing people's behavior. I've long since, and more so now than ever before, confirmed, I'm firm on the fact that sport is a great therapy if you can apply the principle of sport in your therapy sessions. And I actually had a couple of people who said, I'm going to give your theory a try. Now we don't have any large numbers, but when they took some of the approaches that we talked about, they did see some change. So we're going to champion that, but we're talking 1%. I don't know if that's enough to talk about, but nevertheless, the idea worked, or it's working, because they're still using that. So again, it goes back, and I read this 1,000 times, and I 100% believe it. Sport is in the fabric of everything that we do. Even non-sports people, sport is in the fabric of what we do.
Well, I think that we're built in our DNA as far as being competitive,
Oh,
and
yeah,
and
yeah.
and and that's really what it is. It's for us to
That's
be
what it's all it is.
compet
Yeah.
to compete, to be competitive. Even as simple as, I may get in trouble for saying this, but it could be something as simple as, my purse is better than your purse. My purse is
Uh,
cuter than your purse. My shoes look better than your shoes. You see what I'm saying? I'm talking about the compare, and to some degree,
Been there.
we're just wired that way, is what I'm saying. You know.
I worked in retail. I worked in fashion. So, well, let's say a little bit of fashion, and absolutely one of the best sales you can make is to show competitiveness in the fashion image that you're trying to represent. They will buy. They will buy if they think they got that edge. They'll buy it. So it's in everything that we do. It's a fabric. It's in our fabric. It's in our DNA, as you say, 100%. I wish
Okay.
someone had mentioned that to Minnesota, that it was important for us to compete. And I say that jokingly. I'm sure they did the best they could, but it just wasn't enough.
Well,
Just absolutely was not enough. I hate to bring that up, but
no, no, no.
I
That's
mean,
a good
in turning that corner and flipping that
segue. You
switch,
know, that's a good
yeah, I
segue,
mean,
Vince, because
I never.
I was eventually I was hoped to get there, but I was going to talk about the Cavs first. But then let's go ahead and talk about.
No, no, no,
Let
no,
me
no, no.
let me
You
ask you
can
this
talk
right
about
here,
the Cavs because the
huh?
Cavs are going to have a similar experience as what the Vikings have had very soon. So, but yes, it's a great segue.
No, but let me ask you this right here, since you brought up Minnesota, some did say that the Saints were a better team. Is it that Philly is that much better? Did they just leave the game on the bus? What did you see in that game?
Well, you would have to say that Philly's execution far exceeded that of the other team. They seem to be. They have more energy. They seem more direct. They were hungry, if you will, to me than I thought Minnesota was. I thought Minnesota came down and threw a punch, but they couldn't take a punch. And Philadelphia took advantage of every opportunity. Every turnover they turned it into a positive. So they simply, and this is a catchphrase that's used frequently, but I think they really got outplayed and outcoached, is what I think happened. Because when you bring two professional teams on the field, one has to have an advantage. It's either in execution or game plan. And to me, they go together. If you execute the game plan better than the other person, you tend to win the game. I think Philadelphia seemed very loose, very comfortable, and let's go do this. And I thought Minnesota it looked a little tight. By the time they were relaxed, it was too late. They were already in that hole. And as you and I both know, climbing out of a hole is a tough situation. You got to give an awful lot of energy, and then time becomes an enemy to you. And I think that's what happened to the Vikings. They got hit so hard. They threw a heck of a good punch, but after that, Philadelphia just came back. And let's not and I got to go ahead and talk while we're there. We got to go ahead and talk about them Patriots. I thought they had them, but what happened was them Patriots come right back. They let them go down the field. I thought there was one play that could have well put them away, but the defensive back made an excellent play on the ball and stopped the play, which to me kind of sealed the game. But you can talk about it and you can plan it, but you have to do execution. And I think in both cases, that was the difference in the game. Other teams just didn't execute, and That's why we're looking at the Patriots. Oh my goodness, and Philadelphia because they out execute the other team.
Well,
Now, because a lot of times people say, well, the other team was better. Maybe so, but execution, they got to win to get there. We just can't give you that because of what people think. That's why they play the game. And if they're better than them, then hopefully they have the opportunity to be there. Because I've heard many times, and I think you and I've said that, I've seen championship games where the two teams in the championship probably weren't the best teams, but they were the teams that executed and got there. So, what are you going to say? So it was just, yeah, for me as a sports fan, I was a little disappointed because neither one of my teams did. But I really thought Jacksonville, for a minute there, Jacksonville had me believing. I almost became a Jaguar fan. But it was
but
inevitable. They let the Patriots back in.
but Vince, I think Jacksonville is a perfect example of I think what we had talked about that I've seen, especially on that level. For whatever reason, you play not to lose versus playing to win, especially going into
Mm.
that fourth quarter. Then you become, conservative. You're trying to not lose the game versus playing to win. Like you may not recall this, but it was in the fourth quarter. They were close to the 50-yard line, and it was
Hmm.
fourth down. They definitely needed to score. It was probably somewhere about 5 or 6 minutes to go in the game. It was pretty close to the 50-yard line. They had less than a yard to go for a
Hmm.
first down. And the entire game, New England did not stop Jacksonville one time when they needed to pick up
Mm-hmm.
1 yard. They didn't even come
Mm-hmm.
close to stopping them. Every time Jacksonville needed 1 yard, they got it, even more so. And for them
Mm-hmm.
to give that ball back to them, and they needed to score, and they was less than a yard from a first down, that right there, when he did not go for that first down, I said to myself, they're gonna lose this game. And not that it was
Mm-hmm.
that particular play, but there's just something. But see, let me ask you this right here. As a competitor, and I'm asking you on your opinion in that
Mm-hmm.
situation, in that type of game, I, as a coach, I call timeout. Understanding the history of New England, who we playing, and I say to them, guys, we're going to the Super Bowl. We need this first down. Is this what you want to do? I asked them, should we punt this ball or we going to get this first down? Because now at this time, I'm putting it on them. I'm saying we need to get this first down. Everybody come over. We need this first down. They has not stopped us all day when we needed a yard. Let's get this first down. What are you saying, guys? I don't get that type of mentality, because we was talking about this as well. When Seattle was in the Super Bowl playing against New England, and they did whatever that play call, and they threw that interception, whatever that was, Vince, football or being competitive, what we were just talking about is this right here. We come together. That's what this is all about. And either I move you or you move me. That's what we
Mm-hmm.
train for. That's what we're born to do right here. That's why we do what we
Right.
do. So when we come together, and if it doesn't happen, if you move me this way, I can go us. When they made that call, when Seattle made that call, when you had beast mode back there in the back, and what
Mm-hmm.
football is all about, you need to go, you like on the 1 yard line. I can live with the clashing and you move me back. I can have the respect and live with that a whole lot better than that fluff play that was called, because this is what this is about. And who wants it is it's going to go this way or that way. And that's what it's all about. How do you, I don't get how you don't, I don't get it. I may be talking crazy to some people, but that's what sports is. And those guys that is on that line, they know. They know when that play is called, and if he don't get that first down, they gonna look at each other and they gonna look across and go, you know what? That defense held the line. We didn't do what we supposed to
Mm-hmm.
do. Even though you lose the game, you can respect that versus that fluff
Right.
call that whoever made that call versus what went on. I can live with that a whole lot better if I get when we clash and he wanted it more. I can deal with that a whole lot better.
Well, Charles, I mean, awful lot of strategy goes in making those decisions, game planning and scheming and all of that. And it comes down to sometimes just taking a chance. And I think if I'm looking, and I looking at, they haven't stopped me all day. This would have to be a game drive. I got to score. I need a first down to do it. I think I go with my strength. Now that's what I see. Now maybe sitting upstairs, they saw something totally different. They're scheming, and when
They got
I
scared,
can't.
Vince. They got scared.
It could have been in it too.
They
I
got
mean, because
scared.
I can see them being a little frightened because you allowed New England back in the game, and now the New England mystique, it was working on you.
That's why you
The
can't give it
magic that
back to him.
you think that. Exactly, that was my point. I would have, at least I'm thinking right now. and basically looking at the game and remembering it the way I did, I think I go for it. And if I don't stop them, then I'm going to fight them right there on that mark, and we're going to win and lose the game there. Now, also in that, they had that pass from Bortles to that receiver. If he had caught that caught that football, that was a touchdown. The defensive back made an outstanding play to deny the ball. There's nothing you can say about that. Great pass, great pattern, great defense. Those things, that's what the game really is all about. And I don't, because they couldn't fault Bortles for that when they couldn't fault the receiver. He ran a perfect route. This guy just happened himself in the right place at the right time and knocked down what would for sure would have been a touchdown, or they had to score, and he was there to be done that. So one of my concerns was people would be criticizing Bortles because coming up and they didn't give Jacksonville a chance. Then when he got there, everything was if he performed. I thought he performed well. Beyond well, because some of the things that happened weren't his fault. Play calling sometimes is not his decision. Now he can, they give him a list of plays he can call, but they're talking to him, telling him, I don't want to run that, don't run that, run this. They give him ability to check off and whatever. So it's really hard to say, but I say all that to say that it had been me, I think, given the facts now, looking at what they were looking at, maybe I make a different call, but what I was looking at, I'm going for it. You're going to have to stop me because of what you say. It's brute force. There's no scheme in here. Brute force against brute sport. We're going to meet each other in the hole, and I'm going to push you as far as I can, and we're going to see what happens.
Because my better is better than your better. That's the mentality that you walk in with.
You got to believe that. But see, I think that's what the difference was with, because look, and I hate to say this because I'm not a huge New England fan, but when they got scored upon and they were down, and I think it was up 10-0 or 10-7 or 20-7 or 20-10 or whatever. And next time Brady got the ball, he looked like he said, okay, now I'm ready. It's just the way they looked when they came down the field. Like, okay, I'm going to throw it over here. I'm going to throw it over here. I'm going to throw it over here. I'm going to throw it. Like it was already scripted. This is what we're going to do. And he went down the field too comfortable and with too much confidence. That's when I said, we got a problem. Because they were too confident. I mean, and it happened so fast. And I wanted to see Jacksonville disrupt that confidence that they had, which I think they had put pressure on them. But when they let them back in and let them get 17-20, and I said, I don't like this. I don't like this. And sure enough, they let these guys roll back in. When I say I'm sure they didn't let them roll back in. I mean,
like you said, they did make it look
whatever
easy.
Happened. They didn't look too doggone easy.
I'm gonna share my personal opinion on you when they talk about Brady. I like Brady. Brady is a great quarterback. But the one thing, and I don't know if I shared this with you, but the one thing that I would say when it comes to him and Montana, because if you ask me Montana or Brady, I'm going to pick Montana all day long. I'm not going to think about it twice. And the reason why is because the majority of the time when Brady has played this game, he is standing upright. He has had a great offensive line, and he is allowed to stand back there and pick that defense apart. Now, Joe Montana, man, I've seen him. As a matter of fact, that game with the catch with Clark in 81, I think that was 81, right? Was that 81?
Right.
Man, I was so mad with him because that doomsday defense, they was like every time they was about ready to touch him, he scrambled out of the pocket, he made something happen. They was right in the reach, and there he goes. So many times. Yeah. And that's the difference between Joe Montana and Brady, because the majority of the time, and you've seen when you're able to put pressure on him, it's a whole nother game. But the majority of the time, that offensive line is doing their job, and he's comfortable standing there because he's upright. But when you put him on his butt, it's a whole different game. And he doesn't, I have yet to see him do what I've seen Joe Montana do. I haven't seen him even come close to doing what Joe Montana did. Not even, not,
But
it's not even, I mean, you can't even discuss it because he's standing
well, you got
straight up.
you got to give Belichick credit for that. And in his scheme of things, they realize he's not a runner. He's not going to run. He doesn't scramble. He'll scramble and throw. He can get away from the defense long enough to make a throw. He's not going to run unless it's absolutely. I mean, the field's been wide open sometime, and he won't run. But they're built that way because that's what they know he is, and
Right.
for
Yeah,
them to be able to give him that kind of time.
But
If you've given Montana that kind of time, he would have. I mean, look at what he did under the Bill Walsh era and the type of game plan that Walsh had, which fit Montana. They allowed him to move. He threw the ball and he would run. Brady don't run.
What?
He don't
No,
run.
no. I'm not necessarily talking about running, Vince. I'm talking
No.
about when
I'm talking
that
about the
pocket
scheme.
collapse, and
See,
you
what I'm
know back
talking
then,
about too
you know the
is
defense was a little different because they could hit you a couple of times after you. I mean, a couple of steps after you done threw the ball. You know.
But that's
Now,
what I'm talking about.
if you touch Brady,
It's
he
just
gonna
that
start crying.
Belichick has come up with the idea, knowing that he doesn't have a quarterback that's mobile. They don't care if he's mobile or not. They're gonna give him the time to be a surgeon. That's
Right.
what they're gonna do. And he spent the time and effort to build a pocket around this man because they know if I give him enough time, he's gonna find what's out there. They're gonna run great routes, and that's one of the reasons their routes are ran so well because they know that if I run a good route, whether I'm the first, second, or third, he gonna find me.
Right.
He gonna go
But
down his
but
read progression. You know,
but
so
see.
for this day of football,
Mhm.
Belichick has found a way to get away from that game of years gone by. Back then, what Walsh was doing, it was hard for them to defeat them because of his pocket protection that they gave Montana. Although Montana was a little bit more mobile, he wasn't a real runner, but he could
No,
move
no,
a
no,
lot
no, no,
better.
no. I
You know,
wasn't. No, I
but
wasn't talking about
again, that
running.
pocket protection.
No, I
No,
wasn't talking
but that
about
goes a
running, Vince.
part
I
of.
was talking about escaping. Escaping, not
But
running.
see, that's what I'm
Escaping
saying.
is what I was talking about.
But Montana was a better escaper than
Right.
Brady is. But to Brady's era, Brady don't have to escape much.
Well,
He
that's my
stands he
point.
stands in that pocket 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds
That's
without
my
having to move.
point.
Now that's just execution. That's
No, no,
execution
no,
up
no, no,
front.
no, 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 no. What? No. What I'm saying is, okay. Well, let me put it to you like this right here. Now, you may not agree with me, but
Okay.
I think if you put Joe Ferguson in that same position, in that same system, he would be just as successful as Brady.
I'm not sure I can agree with that because I think the difference, I think systematically he's going to have some success. He could probably eventually get to be that way. The reason I don't think it would be as successful is because that was built around Brady with the
Because,
idea
well,
that Brady is a good reader. He's a, you
right.
know, he
So was Joe
executes at a high
Ferguson.
level.
You basically you looking for a
Different.
quarterback that don't make mistakes. You
Yeah,
looking
I
for a
don't know if
quarterback that
Ferguson
can
would
stand
do
in the
as well. I
pocket
just don't think.
and be
Yeah.
accurate. And because you got a pocket that you can stand back there in, and Joe Ferguson was a good quarterback, he didn't make mistakes. And if he had the
I,
time, he could put the ball where you need it to go.
I don't think again, you got to build it around. You got to. I don't think you can take a quarterback or running back or receiver and just put them in an offensive scheme until it's built for them, because
Well,
there's so many
well,
nuances that has to
but
take place. So if you had a Belichick type team and they've had a chance to build that, and you drop him in there, he's going to have some success because he got
but
time, but not the same
Vince,
success.
let me ask you something. What's the difference
Hmm.
between Joe Ferguson and Brady in the sense of I meant from them standing in the pocket? What's the difference? What's the difference between the
I
two?
think the biggest difference is, for me, the biggest difference is Brady came through, that quarterback. It doesn't have to be Tom Brady. He's come through the progression of what you're looking at. They have now become sensitized to one another in routes and how to adjust route running. They fit the line, knows how to block for him because it's customized. It looks like it's just you can just put anybody in there. I've seen basketball teams the same way. You say the way they run, all you gotta do is just put a guy. That's not true. That's really not true. It looks that simple, but it's not that simple because there's some nuances that have to be massaged in order for that to take place.
But I'm not looking at the quarterback, Vince. I'm not looking at the
Mm.
quarterback. I'm looking at the time he has to throw. That's what I'm looking at. I'm saying if
Yeah,
you
but
put,
still, you got to look at the
well,
quarterback and his ability to read his progressions and routes being run. And because what really makes Brady look good, Charles, that nobody talks about,
yeah,
is that his receivers
but
run good routes.
but what I'm saying is Joe Ferguson had the same skills, but he didn't have the same offensive line. That's all I'm
But that's my
saying.
point. I mean, it's being custom. You just can't take one quarterback and his ability, because number one, you got to ask yourself, how patient is Joe Ferguson as opposed to Brady, who has been customized for this, knowing that I got enough time. The line knows that I need to give him X amount of seconds and he's going to make a play. That takes time to learn. If he moves, which way will he move?
Well,
The receiver
okay
knows
then.
that
Let me.
if he
Okay.
does, you know what I'm
Let me
saying?
switch it up for you then. Okay, because I was trying to
Okay.
find somebody on a skill level with the same as Brady. Is
Well,
why I
I give
said
him
Joe
more on a
Ferguson.
skill level because
What you think? No.
yeah.
What you think Warren Moon would have done if he had been if he had played now in the same system with Belichick? Warren Moon now. Warren Moon.
I'm not sure Warren Moon, unless Belichick would be willing to embrace Warren Moon and everything that he brings to the table. If he doesn't limit Warren Moon and he's going to take his ability to move and run the ball and throw the ball, he'd be outstanding. If Belichick would not allow him because of he's not comfortable with that and want to make Warren Moon a pocket passer, I think he would have a high level of success, but not the same success. The same success because he's a different kind of quarterback. He was mobile, and Warren could run. He didn't, he didn't run. He didn't run before he passed. He would look for the pass he didn't have it. He would give it. My question would be: would Belichick embrace that, or is Brady his kind of quarterback? A guy
Well,
who's disciplined through his system, and
to me, I
that's all
think
I'm saying.
no. To me, I think Warren is more accurate of a thrower.
That too. I mean, he's that.
Yeah.
He threw the ball well. He was a heck of a quarterback. He read the field well. He could put pressure on you. Because now you look at the fact that how well would the line have to block for Warren Moon? Y'all don't have to hold your block as long because if it's not there, he's gonna take off anyway. Okay, but here under this system, I got to hold it a little bit long because Brady ain't going nowhere. He's not gonna move. He might move a little bit to the right, move a little bit to the left, but he ain't going nowhere. You're gonna get a sack. Now he might go 2 yards forward and fall down,
But
but where
see,
Moon gonna try to go 20 yards and try to get something out of that.
when you have somebody like, for an example, like when they went up against the Giants and they lost that Super Bowl because they had that front four. And see, they
Mm-hmm.
really haven't had to play against that front four like they did, in the Super Bowl to put that pressure on it. Because you
Yeah,
need,
well, you're right.
I,
He's
you
cracked
know,
under pressure.
I love what Al Davis said. Al Davis said the
Mm.
quarterback must go down, and he must go
Oh
down
yeah,
hard.
yeah.
And that's the
Amen.
whole theme of you got to get to the quarterback. If not, you in trouble.
Well, that's very obvious in their situation. And again, the way they're built, they got to make sure Brady has enough time for him to be able to be as accurate as he can. And one of the biggest differences, or another difference, let me say this, is that he's confident. If you look at him when he drops back, he's very confident to sit there and go through his progressions of receivers and patterns and stuff because he doesn't feel like he's going to be touched. What he's not familiar with, and to the point that you made earlier, if you put pressure on him, because once again, he's used to having all day to take his time and throw. And when you pressure him, he's not nearly as accurate because he's on the move. A Warren Moon, one of those mobile quarterbacks, they can throw on the run because they used to run it. They've had lines that didn't protect that long, so they listen. I got to go, man. I waited long as I can. Now I got to run the ball. That's the biggest difference I see. Again, Belichick permeates that in the way that he does his system. I'm just looking at now what's going to happen because they've got some crack in their armor. There's some rumblings going on up. There's some people that are unhappy that if they win this Super Bowl, it might be their last because there was some conversation that Belichick was going to take another job, which I'm not sure really going to happen.
No,
But
no.
the, the,
Why would he
the,
go anywhere? You know, I mean, he
well,
can.
the conversation that you're having, or that's being had, is what has happened. You've had success in a certain way so long that they're starting to bump heads now about how that gets done. A long, long, long level of success, and now bits and pieces don't fit, and that kind of stuff is what I've been hearing. Now I'm saying to myself, that's crazy, y'all. Right now, y'all the team to beat. Can't nobody beat you, or you're not being beaten. Why? What is everybody fussing about? And so again, that's going to play itself out, and you got to favor them going into the Super Bowl. While I don't want to, and I probably will go with my division. Now that the Philadelphia made it, I'll go with my division because Philadelphia looked like, I'm telling you, they look really good. I mean, they were hitting on all cylinders. I hope they didn't leave it all in that game, and they don't bring anything to the Super Bowl and let Brady and them get comfortable and mow them down like a lawnmower cutting grass. I hope that's not going to happen. I hope we're going to have a very
Well, I just hope.
entertaining.
I mean, if the defense show up, because I mean, if the defense shows up,
Could be interesting.
you know, I don't.
It, it,
I don't know what may happen. Because you know, France is like the biggest Philly fan. So
she got a lot of people on her side too. I got some people in my ear every day about them Philadelphia Eagles. I'm like, okay, yeah, y'all made me a believer. Y'all got to the Super Bowl. I can't argue that point with you. I may not have liked you, may not have believed in you, but you're there. So I have to accept the fact that you're there. Now you got one shot to bring it all. And I really would like to see them go out there and do it, because first of all, the city of Philadelphia has suffered a number of years with no winners, especially in football. So
right.
everybody ought to get a chance to win one. So, and I'm not tired of New England winning. I can't say that because I have a great appreciation for well-oiled machines, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, hockey, or soccer. I'm amazed that you can get people to buy into a system, a single thought pattern, a single body of execution for a common goal. I'm fascinated by that. I've studied and continue to study the mindsets of coaches that coach that, players that play in that, and what is that DNA like? How do you get that DNA? Is it something they bring to the table? Is it something you develop it when they get? I don't know, but it's amazing to me, which makes me like a Belichick, a Luce, I mean a Saban down there in Alabama, and Coach K at Duke. Oh God, but because of what they level of success that they have, it's one of my fascinations is learning what the winning DNA looks like when you get people to come together as a group who may have different philosophies about things, but all get on one page for one common goal. And amazing. That's absolutely amazing to see that done and to see it done consistently in such a high level. But I don't know. We're going to see. I agree with you. If Philadelphia show up, this could be very, very interesting. And I'm hoping they do, because I like to see a good Super Bowl. And I like him win it. And I like to see him. Go ahead and win it, Philly. I don't care. Now you were talking about Cleveland. Please, you're talking about the implode that's about to take place in the Cavaliers. Because the
Well,
wire's already been set. I'm just waiting for them to light the fuse. I'm ready to light the fuse because it's getting ready to blow up.
well, you know what? We're gonna talk about them next week. What I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna try to catch up with Ray Hamilton and
Mm-hmm.
James Harris. I spoke with Ray day before yesterday, and I spoke with James Harris today. So I'm trying to find out if I can get them both together for them to give me some insight on what they think
Mm-hmm.
the game is coming up, and then we can run that during the show next
Right.
Wednesday, and then we can
Right.
talk about Cleveland.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. And unfortunately, now while we're there, real quick, to give you an idea of to kind of bring that scenario home, you look at what happened in Milwaukee. You got a
Oh
successful coach
yeah,
up there,
yeah.
and Jason Kidd got him going to the champion. I'm sorry, got him going to the playoffs, and all of a sudden we have a difference of opinion. We now question calls that you made. We don't agree on which direction we're going. Sounds like Scott Skiles when he was with the Orlando Magic,
Right.
had him pointing in the right direction. And said, "Well, we want to do this." He said, "No, I don't want to do that." That's why my Cowboys with Jimmy Johnson, when Jerry Jones come in and wanted to tell Jimmy, "No, I want you to play this guy with Jimmy." Said, "I'm not going to do that. That's not how I win." And that seems to be. I say all that to say that seems to be there's a difference of this, but what they had a frayed relationship. Well, that's code word for we don't agree, and so they fired him, which I can't believe that. I mean, and he was doing a better than decent job. So that implosion could very easily occur, and I think Tyrone Lue is going to be a casualty.
Right.
He's going to be a casualty. Now, here's the sad thing too. LeBron did not. He didn't sign an extension, so it's a possibility he could be gone anyway. So
Right.
I'm waiting for the candles to go off. Waiting
Yeah,
for the
but see,
candles to go off.
and of course, the coach is the scapegoat.
Absolutely, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
so
He's
what
going
is
to be.
so what is it that he's doing different this year that he didn't do last year? The only thing is what? I mean, what's the answer to that question?
They're not playing well. That's what they're not doing. J.R. Smith is not playing well. LeBron is not playing up to his capability. He's losing control on the sideline. The whole atmosphere has changed. Plus, you change players now.
Right.
Now
Right.
you went out and traded for all these
Right.
people.
And that's why I said the coach is the scapegoat because in reality it's
All
really
the
the
time.
players. But now what I
And
did want to
management
bring up,
because they're the one pull these trades.
uh, and we could talk about this next week because I did want to talk about this next week. And remember how I keep saying I keep watching the NBA and I'm trying to figure out what I'm watching because I don't know this game. And I'll just throw it out there and we could talk about it next week. But Vince, we're now watching the NBA and Kevin Love is playing the five. Do I need to say anything else? Kevin
No,
Love is playing the five. That's what the NBA
now.
has come to. And I'm a Kevin
Well,
Love fan. I like him as a player. But Kevin Love is playing the five, Vince. He's playing the
well,
five. That's what this
we
game
need to
has come
discuss
to.
that because not necessarily is what
Huh?
that's a strategy of where you're trying to go. So we need to talk about that because
Right,
there's a
right.
strategy.
Because
We need to talk about the strategy
right,
of
because
what
Kevin
they're
Love is
trying to get
playing the
done.
five, Vince.
I'm
That's
not.
what this
I
league
don't.
has come
I,
to.
I don't think so, though, Charles. I think there's a strategy to that. There's a reason for that because a few years ago, the NBA was trying to go to the Dennis Rodman type five player, but they couldn't find enough of those to make that happen. So to
Right.
come around now
But
with the influx of the European ball player who was 7 foot
exactly,
one,
that's what I'm saying. What this game has
no
come
play
to.
inside the block. You should. That's what the game is. And so now that's what Cleveland's trying to make a trade. Now I
It's
understand to
taking a
get a
step
post player.
backwards, Vince. It's taking a step
Well,
backwards.
it's
Taking a
backwards
step
from what I
backwards.
like, but it's got to be competitive because they allow it to happen. When they put that 3-point line in, they changed the game forever. And now they're talking about even putting in a 4-point player. I'm like, are you nuts? We already got a
And
3-point player. What you need a
and
4-point
what
player?
do I keep saying? What is this I'm watching? I have no idea what this is that we're watching because I can't relate to it. I don't understand it. It looks stupid to me. It's crazy. Kevin Love playing the five. What else can be said?
And we'll ask Lou why when he's looking for a new job. Lou, do you still think Kevin Love should be a 5?
Crazy.
Time will tell. Time will tell. Game continues to evolve.
All right. Well, we'll get a chance to talk more about it next week. What you got? How many games you got? Who's your big game coming up next week before you get out of here?
We got a game. We won the other night, so we got one of our rivals coming up this Friday. We're 17-4 right now, 9-1 in our district. So we're the first place in the district, going down the backside of the ladder right now. So every game we play is a district game from here on out, and everyone is important.
You were supposed to
So
send me a link, man, so I could see you guys. You never did send me that link so I can watch you guys play. We can show some of your highlights here on the show.
and you remember what I told you. In order to make that happen, you got to do what? Remind me, because you didn't
I know.
remind me. Because I have the best of intentions, that, but it just gets away from me. If you have to help me out. I'm getting a little bit older, so you got to make an extra phone call and say, listen, man, don't forget. Send me a text or something. I love for you to be what we do. I'm gonna have to pick and choose. And, once I'm gonna look, I'm gonna have to. I could probably send you some video, but I'm gonna have to pick and choose what I send you. I'm gonna send you the good games. I'm not gonna send you the bad games.
All right. Well, I'm happy that it's a little warmer for you. Like I said, it was in the 80s. It's been in
Yeah.
the 80s. It's supposed to be a little cooler tomorrow, but it's still very, very good weather here. So I'm happy that it's not as
Hmm.
cold as it was, like last week there for you. Because I think
Right.
I had
Right.
talked with you and you said it was eight. It was eight. It was 8 degrees.
Eight
I think it
degrees,
was.
and it sure was, and it
Yeah,
went down to
eight.
-1. Yeah. So we had some -1. We had some -1 with the wind chill factor. So while I enjoyed that for a moment, when the snow fell, that was great for about 2 days, and after that, like I was saying, okay, that's enough now. I've seen enough snow to last me a lifetime. So we had 5 snow days that we had from school. So, but so far, weather's good.
All right. Well, blessings to you. Thank you so very much.
Thank
And
you. Appreciate
I
it.
know that you need to get you some rest, so I'll try to catch up with you. And I will remind you about that link as well. I'll
Yes,
text it to you.
please do that. Yeah,
All
text me.
right.
I'll
Let me
and
see if I can do.
I'll get
No,
it together
this
for
way. He's Vince Carter. He's Coach Vince Carter.
you.
I'm Charles Morris. We're happy that you spent the time with us here on a Wednesday evening here at Youth Central Sports. We're here every Wednesday, starting at 11 p.m. And we want to say enjoy the rest of your week.